Greetings, everybody. My name is James. I am from the internet, and today we are going to be talking about what a drag it is getting old. Now, in a really not all that long time ago, and in a completely not distant galaxy that is totally not far away, a young couple of 23-year-olds with a small child and one working class job used to be able to buy a house, a car, a mortgage and a loan on both, and still manage to buy groceries and furniture and basically pay all the bills. And if one of them got sick, they could take them to the hospital and have to pay a minimal amount of money to have that family member taken care of. Now, I know if you're younger, you really might be scratching your head right now going, is he talking about like a movie, or did he read a book? Did someone drop a safe on his head? Like, does he have a concussion? James, do you smell almonds right now? I know it all sounds a little far-fetched. So what I want to do is go back in time real quick, and I want to show you how generationally accumulating wealth and being in a safe life economic situation used to be a hell of a lot easier. And then when we get to the end, well, who knows, maybe I will posit a theory as to why this is a thing. Here we go. First off, some raw data. This is roughly what each generation holds in the total amount of net worth in the United States, and it's tracked over a 30-year period from 1990 to 2020. And as you can see, the silent generation, those are the relatives you never bother to call anymore if they're still alive. Yeah, well, they're now in the 85 and over range. So the total amount of net worth that they currently have comparative to the rest of the country keeps dropping and dropping because the overall population keeps shrinking and shrinking, and pretty soon they're not going to be around. Now, if you take a look at 1990, you'll see the silent generation at that point owned 80% of all the wealth in the United States of America. And at that point, the oldest people in their generation were 45 years old, 80% of all the net worth. Now, if you drop down and you look at the baby boomers, well, when the oldest of the boomers hit 45, sometime around 2010, they only owned 50% of all the wealth in the United States of America. And now, if you drop down to Gen X, the red line, well, the oldest of them is now in the 45 to 50 range. And as you can see, they own less than 20% of all the wealth in the country. I just want to sort of paint a picture for you so that you can understand in very simple terms when people say it's a lot more difficult to get ahead now than it used to be. This is quite literally a statistical and mathematical fact. Now, let me show you a couple of things that make this seem even worse. Gen X workers may be facing the biggest unemployment crisis, study finds. Now, as a member of Gen X, I'm just going to assume this has something to do with us now being the olds. You know, we still use programs instead of apps. Gen X workers aged 45 and older may be bearing the brunt of a global unemployment crisis as the pandemic adds to existing challenges for older workers, according to a new report. Rapid digital adoption during the pandemic has accelerated the automation of jobs and worsened underlying ageism, making it harder for mid-career workers to secure roles, according to the report from Generation, a nonprofit employment organization. In a global study entitled, quote, Meeting the World's Mid-Career Challenge, the firm found that entry-level and intermediate workers between the age of 45 and 60 face increased barriers due to biases among hiring managers, as well as reluctance among workers to learn new skills. Now, as somebody in this age cohort, I can understand, some of my fellow contemporaries might have been scared off by, really complicated stuff like Zoom, Generation's CEO said the report had, for the first time, quote, put a number on ageism. It is very clear that once you reach a certain age, it just becomes much harder to access a job opportunity. Now, again, I could understand this if we were talking about the boomers. My mom, roughly 70 years old, still doesn't even use an email address. The study, which was conducted between March and May of 2021, surveyed 3,800 employed and unemployed people from 18 to 60, and more than 1,400 hiring managers. And despite the varied international job landscape, the findings are broadly the same. 45 to 60-year-olds are at the most overlooked employee bracket. Indeed, for the past 6 years, mid-career individuals have made up a consistently high percentage of the long-term unemployed. Now, remember that fantastical tale I told you about in the beginning about the, long ago, far away, single job? Well, back in that generation and back in that day, once an employee got into their 50s, well, they were usually in a position of management or senior authority. They had worked their way up the ranks. They had gotten the gold pen, the gold pocket watch, the 20-year anniversary on the job. Maybe they had the parking spot outside in the company car, because people were respected for all the experience that they brought into the workplace and thus could pass it along to the next generation. Nowadays, however, the largest employers in the United States of America, such as Amazon and Walmart, are pretty much looking to only get 2 to 4 years out of employees before finding a way to get rid of them, because they find them to slowly get sort of comfortable at their job. And they don't want people who are comfortable. They'd rather cycle them out and then hire more people at entry-level salaries, because they don't care about the long-term skills. The long-term skills, those are in the robotics and the programming and the planning of all of their futuristic warehouses and delivery methods. And so these people who were mid-management and mid-career and maybe starting to have one eye in the distance looking at retirement with a pension package, yeah, those people, they don't have those jobs anymore because those jobs barely exist. And if they do, they now oversee 100 employees instead of 10, just so there are less of them. And now 45, 55, 60-year-old people, yeah, they're the ones who are delivering you your groceries. They're delivering you your dinner. They're answering the phone when you call a service to get help off of a 1-800 number. Yeah, those are the jobs these people have now. It's almost as if the CEOs, the investors, and the capitalist class have decided there's more value in themselves retaining more money and spending less on pesky things like experienced employees and managers who can avert crises and make systems better. Yeah, pish posh, we don't need that. We just need a large brick building and some drones to deliver boxes that have barcodes on them. So now surely all of this misfortune, befalling the 45 and over members of the workforce, should then be reflected in beneficial conditions for the next wave of workers. The ones that all of these hiring managers desire because they're under 45. Right? Yeah, not so much. Millennials' high-earning years are here, but it doesn't feel that way. After 2 recessions and a world-changing pandemic, the arrival of the high-earning years for millennials born in the 1980s are around the corner. Yet data suggests this phase of life might not provide the financial security other generations found at the same age. Oh no, say it ain't so. What a drag. It is getting old. With a higher debt-to-income ratio and other financial obligations already pressing on their budgets, some millennials entering their high-earning years have delayed home ownership and family formation. Quote, in perspective, you can kind of understand how the millennial generation is a microcosm of the K-shaped recovery that we're seeing, and also just the divergence in wealth overall. I think you have to factor in the labor market changes over time as well, but there's a kind of more of a sense of insecurity, even though you might now be earning a high salary or wage that might not be guaranteed tomorrow. You know, because we have no more labor unions and 45% of all the people in the United States of America now participate in the, quote, gig economy, which means you're not an employee, you're a contractor. Technically, you are your own small business with one employee, you. So your, quote, contractor does not have to give you any benefits. No medical, no dental, no mileage on your car, no pension, nothing to look forward to. They are merely paying you by the hour for your labor until you accidentally trip and fall and you break something, and then they replace you with another hourly contractor. The high earning years that you hit sometime after your 40s coincide with the time when many adults take on new financial responsibilities, such as a mortgage or childcare or elder care costs. While every generation complains about higher costs nibbling their earnings, millennials may feel particularly squeezed as they juggle a high debt-to-income ratio and try to catch up on delayed life events. Yeah, medical debt from your 20s and your 30s, student loan debt, yeah, that will essentially wipe you out and make it impossible to buy a house before your 40s or sometimes even your 50s, says the 50-year-old guy who literally just bought his first house. As of 2020, the median age of a first-time home buyer was 33 years old, up from 30 years old only a decade ago. Also, now the average age of a mother having her first child is at age 27, also later in life. This is what happens when you have an educated workforce and no good paying jobs. People are smart enough to know that they can't afford a fancy wedding or a house or to reproduce and have another human being. That's the stage of the economy we're in. And even the younger people, the ones who are supposed to be getting handed the reins and starting to push forward, even they are being further delayed in life. So what does all of this mean for you, the average viewer at home? Well, if you're, I don't know, under 40 or so, it means, in general, you're kind of fucked. Now, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad tidings here, but unless you have parents or grandparents who own their home outright and have an estate and are leaving it to you, and then they pass away and you get that home and sell it, the chances of you being able to earn a college education, then go out, get a job in your career, work that career, and accumulate enough money so that you can afford to buy a house or buy stocks or, participate in the part of capitalism where your money somehow makes money for you, yeah, the chances of that happening for you are getting thinner and thinner and thinner. So I suggest you all start forgetting that old-timey American dream of having two people in a relationship with one child and a house and a car all on one income, because nowadays you can't even do it with two incomes. Until next time, my name is James. I am from the internet and I'm out. Peace.